Alright, hey, what's up YouTube? It's Chris here with Coffee and Photos. Today we're looking at some bracketed images and some organizational skills inside of Lightroom. As you can see, I went ahead and I did some of the post-processing work already, and then I also tried to record this already, and some of the work has already been done. Now if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, well, why does he have red flagged images inside of his library? Well, this is because I use the highlighted or the highest exposed or the brightest exposed image as my marker for the set. So my camera, the Nikon D5200, it's a crop sensor, APS-C Nikon entry level DSLR, maybe even a mid-level DSLR, but anyhow, the way that it takes bracketed images is the very last image is always the highest exposed image. That's how it gets printed onto the card. So then when the images come into Lightroom, they come in that sequence. Now that we know why or how that happens, the way that I group my images for that particular bracket is by flagging with a red indicator that is the highest exposed image. So I take that image, and then I know that the three or the two right before it are my three images that I need to use for this exposure. All right. And if I'm shaky, it's because I'm using a Wacom tablet and I've never used one, or I've had it for a long time. I just never really used it. So I'm going to go ahead and merge these images here. I also have a smart collection set up for all of my HDR images once I go. We're going to look at two ways of merging bracketed images today. The first way is by right clicking and go to photo merge and then HDR. What I like to do is just click on it. I know that in this image there's little to nothing that moved. Mine, other than the water is probably the thing that moved the most. But I don't really see any issues. I really enjoyed this log here, kind of a long leading line, and it's a very drastic separation from the rocks all the way into the ocean, the river. This is Chena River here in Fairbanks, Alaska, and then this is Birch Hill up here. Lots of people go skiing there in the winter. Pretty dead during the summer. I'm actually going to put it on low because I know that the water was moving and I can't see any ghosting artifacts. But because I know that the water was moving, I'm just going to go ahead and put it on low. And this is a pretty low angled image. I used my GorillaPod to put my camera on, and I like the way that one looks. So inside of Adobe Lightroom, the photo merge that comes out of there, I'm not the hugest fan of. I'm not the greatest fan of. But it does work, and if this is all you have, then go for it, you know? Now, once I get done merging an image, I have any image that's tagged with HDR in the title, which Photoshop does. It comes over here to my, it comes over here to my smart collection, and then I just go ahead and give it a green tag, and we're gonna go ahead and see what we can do with this photo, because my personal artistic approach is I really enjoy contrast. Now, I work with everything in solo mode because I like to simplify as much as I possibly can. All of this back here, all this haziness, that's actually smoke in the air. We're going through a bit of forest fire, so I'm going to clear that up first. And this also helps bring in just a little bit of contrast. So I'm going to bring this up probably to about there. Now, my trees and all of this, it looks a little grungy and dingy even. So I am going to come down here to my color, and I don't have a set workflow. I just kind of go with what I feel like I need to work on right at the second. So I want to make my greens more green. If I bring it up that high, because of the reflection in the water, makes it look weird. And then if I desaturate them, it makes it look like that is a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And I like darker greens in the image, so I'm actually going to bring the luminance down on my greens, and that looks about right to me. I'm going to throw in some yellows here. Let's see. Maybe saturate. No. No, because we're in the middle of summer, so I'll leave a little bit of the yellow in there. And again, oh well. So what you see is if I darken that, then I darken everything around there. And there's a lot of yellows even inside of the greens. So I don't want to darken it too much, but I do like contrast in my images. And then I'm going to go ahead and see what I can do to the sky. Can I darken? Yeah, there we go. So I like my skies to be a little bit darker and a lot more on the blue side. So just going to saturate that, not too much. Maybe bring it back up a little. Oh, there we go. I like the reflection here in the water. The water is looking good. Let's go to the aquas. Maybe bring that down. It's affecting my greens up there. Bring some of the blue out of that. Go back to the greens. Maybe make them a little bit more green. I'll go with that for now, because this is exactly how the trees look. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and throw a generic S-curve. And I know there's some of you who are like, man, you could just get some presets and use those. And I agree. But I actually enjoy this method of editing. Just going little by little until I get to the result that I want. And what I'm trying to do is really build some contrast here in this foreground, because as much as I want people to see it, I don't want that to be the biggest focus. I want the focus to come here to the hill. The sun is actually behind the camera, going in this direction. So there's that. I always save the lens correction for, or I don't always save it for last, but I save the lens correction for last. And we obviously need to get the horizon fairly straight here. Now, what's tricky is this river is going up to here and then curving and then going back that direction. So, where I know that it should be straight across is my horizon should be right about, not up there. My horizon should be about there. And that actually looks pretty dead on. Now, I don't like to crop a whole lot because I like to keep my, still looks a little crooked. But this is where my horizon should be. Okay, that looks better. There we go. I don't like to crop a whole lot of my pixels out because I have a 24 megapixel camera and I like to keep as many of them as I can. When I photograph the image, I usually cut out the things that I don't want. So when I get to this point, I know that I've already done that. Now, one of the things that I sometimes do is I lower the exposure to about there. Oh, not that far. That's way too far. I lower my exposure just enough to make the image look like it's darker, and then that's where I come in here with my radial filters, and I do a little bit of burning, not a whole lot, but if I want this to have, and there we go. We'll go ahead and add a new one, and there's no real rhyme or reason. I'm just looking to brighten up some of the areas that are here on the image. As much as I can. Okay, new. Maybe brighten this little piece up over here. That could work. New. Let's see, where else do I want to brighten up? That can be darker over there. It's just a little bit. Maybe give this little highlight some attention. You know, I really like this this bank here, so I'll give that a little bit of attention. And this is all to your own personal taste, so just do whatever you feel like. Uh-oh. I don't want that. I just wanted to rotate this. And I actually like what it's doing to the water there. Uh-oh. It's intensifying that reflection just off the bank here. Bring it off the photo. Yeah. I think I'm actually going to throw one over here on this side too. And again, I don't have a real rhyme or reason well, I guess now I kind of have a direction that I'm going. I want to direct the eye to here, and I like that this cloud is just kind of peeking through. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's look at it in full screen. Okay. I got a little bit of a highlight on the log here, and then we brought up this bank. I think that's good. So I'm gonna leave those for now. I normally take those out in Photoshop, but for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna do that because this is really just showing how to get some decent quality HDR images. So once I get done with an image, 1 star is all I use to determine that I want to actually export that. Now, like I said, the last thing that I do, or often the last thing that I do, is I go to lens correction and then remove chromatic aberration, whatever, that thing. And And then I go on to my next photo. So let's go back to the library, and we'll leave that photo there. So the second way that I want to show you guys how to get HDR images, and HDR just stands for high dynamic range. I actually want to use, well, I think the leaves are going to be a little tricky today. The wind started blowing. Every time I wanted to take a picture of a leaf, the wind started blowing. It was actually kind of funny and annoying at the same time. So there was a shot though that I took, and it looked like a little island. There it is. If I had a Lego, I think that this would have been something fun to conceptualize. My kids, they love Legos, and I think I'm gonna go with this shot. Yeah, I'll go with this one. So this time, instead of opening in HDR inside of Lightroom, I'm going to actually come down here to HDR Effects. It's going to export them, which is why I had to hover over export. It's going to export the images. And here in a little while, it's going to open up the NIK Effects HDR Effects 2, which is right here. And the first module that it brings me to is just the image rendering module. This is there's no part of this that oh wow, that does not look very appealing. It's actually very hazy. I wonder how this one will render. No, doesn't render any better. Okay, well, maybe that's because of the ghosting. Let me take off the ghost reduction. I don't know why this is doing that. Alright, no worries. Boom. We'll go with it, and we'll just leave it alone. See what happens in the final product that they give us to work with here inside of the HDR Effects Pro 2 module. Now, this is one of those programs where you can make those grungy HDR effects that everyone gives a hard time to the concept. I'm not one of those people that likes to do that. So you're not going to see me doing that in this image. But I do like to click through the presets, see what they bring to the image, what they take from the image. And the water is extremely blue here, which makes it look like I was at some kind of tropical island. Maybe I'll go with a black and white version. Here's a darker version, and I really like the darker version because, again, I like contrast in my images, and then just burn out some of the other things. But in the artistic panel, structurized, this is that over-the-top HDR super grunge that everyone gives the series a hard time about. Seeing it in black and white, I think it's appreciated a little bit more, at least for this one. And then, of course, they have the landscape versions. This is with a graduated filter approach up at the top. That's why the water's darker blue here and a little bit more clear there. This is with a vignetted approach. This looks like a soft focus, but I'm gonna go with realistic. And you know, I think I might actually go with a black and white, but no, I really like the deep 2 here, so I'm gonna go with deep 2, and then I'm gonna come over here to the settings, and we're going to bring the exposure down just a tad. There we go. I really like bringing down exposure. Opening shadows helps out, and then dropping highlights adds in a little bit of contrast. Now my blacks are all the way up, and I'm going to throw a little bit of contrast in here because like I said, I really enjoy contrast. Okay, so that looks about right. I was focusing right here, and you can see that all of this here is in sharp focus. And the cool thing about this program is you can see your before and after side by side on the image. Come on. There we go. Got it. So as I drag it over, you can see the old image. As I drag it to the left, you can see the new image and what actually happened there. Lots and lots of contrast. I really enjoy it like this. I don't want to do anything else to the image because I like where it came from and where it is now. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. I'm not going to do anything else to it. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. I do have one more thing to do. Now, once all of these once that image comes out, and I've already made my image, like I said, I go over here to my collection. I go to my smart collection for HDR images, and I know that the HDR image is going to be down here at the bottom in a little bit. There it is. Alright, so just for the sake of my workflow, right click, set color label to green. And this time, and this is going to be the last part of the video, when I prepare my video or my images to actually be exported from Lightroom, I always send them into Photoshop. And we're going to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. Because I need my Lightroom adjustments in there because that's the version of the image that I actually want to process. So in a little while, it's going to open up Photoshop. And really, the only thing I do in Photoshop in situations where I really like the image and there's nothing more for me to do, all I do is Command J, and put it on the move tool. That gives me a duplicate version, and Command U brings up my hue saturation, and I'm just going to drop the saturation all the way down on this image. I want this to be a black and white version of the image, and then I'm going to come up to the very top here, or actually before I do that, I always right click on it and I convert to Smart Object because I'm about to add some sharpening to the overall image. The reason I turn this into black and white is I have found that rendering color sharpened usually adds a little bit of aberration to it, and I don't like that so much. I use the high pass because I like to sharpen by frequency, and I usually do this to taste. The reason why, and I'm gonna put this the preview for the 1:1 on the area that I want the most sharpening to occur, which is where I actually focused, and I don't want it to be crazy sharp in that area because it's already focused and you could easily overdo it. And there's a lot of small details in this image, so I like how it brings a little bit of information out into the water here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit OK. Now I'm left with this gray looking thing, and this is where the fun really comes in. You change your blending mode. So I have overlay, soft light, hard light. I really like vivid because I enjoy, like I said, I enjoy contrast in my image. Now, when I'm using the vivid light, I see that it did actually sharpen it. Just didn't sharpen it as much as I would like it to have. So, you can click right down here on your smart filters, and I can re-sharpen the image. Once it decides to, I'm going to close that and then reopen it. It didn't give me my handles. Well, now Photoshop wants to act weird. There we go. Don't click on the right side. Click on the left side. Put it right here. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit more. See what happens. Okay. I do like that. And then just hit Command Save or Command S. It's saving. You can see it down here, saving 98.9%. And then once it is completely saved, I'm going to go back to Photoshop or Lightroom, I'm sorry, and then I will show you the exporting process. So Lightroom should bring my processed image. Is this my sharpen? No, that's not my sharpen image. If that's sharp, then I don't think it went to my collection because it's probably not named as HDR. Let's see what it's named as. No, Untitled HDR Edit TIFF. There it is. Okay. Let's take a look at that. This is it. So, looking at it full screen, zoomed in on it 1:1. It's a little soft focused, but it's all right. So now the last thing that I do is I export, and I'm going to right click, go to export, and then export. Now I have some presets of how I like to export my images, but I'm just gonna hit export so I can show that real quick. Everything goes to the drive that I select into a subfolder called Guru's Uploads. That's for a Guru Shot website. But the thing that everyone should be paying attention to is right down here. It is the output sharpening. I always sharpen for screen because I don't print my images, but if you choose to print your images, you're going to want to sharpen it for whatever type of paper, and then define the amount. I've found that because I use the high pass filter and then I go to standard, or high pass filter, screen standard is perfectly fine, works out every single time I export my images, so I don't have any issues. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit export, and then that one is done. This here is just asking, because I use the file name many times already, it's just asking me, do you want to use a unique name? And all that means is instead of it saying 1, it'll say 1 dash, and then whatever the next number in the sequence is, that's perfectly fine. Now, in the case where you want to overwrite something, then you might want to pay attention to what you're actually saving it there. And I'm going to drag my Finder window over. So as you can see, these are a lot of the images that I have already exported. And when I hit space bar, my image pops up. So that concludes the tutorial. I know it was a little long, but hopefully there was some good information in there. I'm still practicing, I'm still learning, but you know, I would love to see your guys' bracketed images. So drop the video a like, comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys are thinking about HDR bracketed images. Do you like it? Do you not like it? I don't want to start an argument as much as a conversation, because I know that HDR is a controversial term and photography style, but hopefully we can come to a common ground and just agree that art is art. Enjoy your day, and until next time, yeah, peace.